The day my neighbor touched my mailbox, I swear time froze for a split second. Then came the zap. A sharp crack, a flash of blue, and there she was, the mighty queen of our neighborhood association, jumping backward like she'd grabbed a live wire. Her scream echoed down the cul-de-sac, loud enough to wake every nosy soul within 50 yards. I was standing by my kitchen window with my morning coffee, watching it unfold like the grand finale of a show I'd been quietly directing for months. And when that electric jolt hit her, I just whispered to myself, "Lesson delivered." Now, before you think I've lost it, let me tell you how I got there. 6 months earlier, life on Brookstone Court was painfully ordinary. Mornings smelled like fresh-cut grass, kids biked to school, dogs barked at squirrels, the suburban dream. I just bought my first home after years of renting cramped apartments, and I thought peace and privacy were finally within reach. Then my mail started disappearing. At first, it was junk flyers and coupons. I didn't care. But then, important stuff vanished. Bank statements, insurance renewals, a contract worth 50 grand. I called the post office. They swore everything was delivered successfully. So if it wasn't lost in transit, it was being stolen. That realization hit hard, mostly because the thief had to be someone close. Someone who walked these sidewalks every day, waved politely, probably borrowed sugar, or asked about my lawn. I started noticing little things, neighbors whispering, glancing at my porch, and one person in particular always hanging around the mailboxes. Linda Morris, our self-appointed HOA president. Linda was in her late 50s, perfectly pressed clothes, matching pearl earrings, and a smile that could slice glass. She ran our community like a miniature kingdom, ruling through fines and friendly reminders. You left your garbage can out too long? $50. Wrong shade of mulch. Citation. She said it was about standards. I called it control. One morning, my neighbor George, retired teacher, local gossip hub, mentioned he'd seen Linda checking people's mailboxes for violations. That word, checking, made something snap inside me. I bought a tiny motion camera, hid it in a wooden birdhouse beside my mailbox, and waited. 3 days later, I had my answer. Clear as daylight, Linda strutted up, opened my box, flipped through my envelopes, and took two that looked important. No gloves, no hesitation, just pure entitlement. I watched that footage 5 times, my hands shaking. I confronted her the next day. She opened her door with that fake politician smile and said, "Oh, I was just making sure no mail was misplaced. You know, community oversight." I said, "Linda, our mailboxes aren't community property. You live 3 houses down." Her husband, Doug, waddled into view, golf shirt tucked tight, face red as a stop sign. "You accusing my wife of theft? That's defamation." "I've got video," I said. His eyes flickered. Then he snapped, "Careful who you show it to. The HOA doesn't tolerate troublemakers." And they slammed the door in my face. 2 days later, I got a notice from the HOA. Unauthorized surveillance device visible from public property. $100 fine. She turned my evidence into a weapon. That night, sitting on my porch, staring at that mailbox under the porch light, I felt something change in me. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was calculation. If the system couldn't stop her, maybe a little science could. I called my old college buddy Sam, an electrical engineer with a mischievous streak, and asked, "You ever electrify a mailbox?" He laughed. "Not yet, but I like where this is going." We designed a small, legal, non-lethal deterrent system. A 12-volt pulse triggered when someone opened the box outside of mail delivery hours. Just enough to startle, not injure. We added a loud warning beep for good measure and slapped on a bright yellow sign. Property protected. Do not touch. Everything by the book. The night before launch, Sam came over to help install it. We worked under the stars like 2 idiots building a time machine for justice. When the circuit finally buzzed to life, Sam tested it himself, got shocked, jumped back, cursed loud enough to scare a raccoon, and grinned. Perfect. That'll humble her. Next morning, I baited the trap with a few fake envelopes, official-looking ones with bank logos and bold fonts. Then I sat by my window, coffee steaming, waiting. Hours passed. Mailman came, did his job. Then, like a villain on cue, Linda's white Lexus rolled up. She got out, clipboard in hand, glancing around like she was checking her empire for cracks. She walked straight to my mailbox, opened the lid, beep. She froze. For a second, I thought she'd stop. But no, Linda Morris didn't believe rules applied to her. She reached in again. The zap was glorious. She shrieked, stumbled backward, dropped her clipboard, and landed on the grass, clutching her hand like it was on fire. I almost felt bad, almost. Neighbors started peeking out their windows. George yelled from across the street, "You all right, Linda?" She glared around, humiliated, and then stomped toward my door. She banged so hard my picture frames rattled. "Open up, you maniac." I opened it slowly, calm as a priest. "Afternoon, Linda. You electrocuted me. You booby-trapped your mailbox. That's illegal." I pointed to the sign. "It says right there, 'Do not touch. Property protected.'" Her husband appeared behind her, recording on his phone like a courtroom drama. "You'll be hearing from our lawyer," he barked. "Great," I said. "And the police can hear about your little mail-stealing hobby." Sure enough, 10 minutes later, 2 officers showed up. Linda was crying. Well, performing, and telling them I'd assaulted her. The officers asked calmly, "Ma'am, why were you touching his mailbox?" "I was performing an inspection for the HOA," she said. The younger cop tried not to laugh. "Ma'am, that's federal property. You can't inspect that." I handed over the flash drive of footage. They watched Linda stealing mail over several weeks. The older officer turned to her and said, "Mrs. Morris, tampering with mail is a federal offense. You might want to stop talking." She went pale. Doug looked like he wanted to crawl into his own golf bag. Turns out, that little scene wasn't the end. It was just the spark. The cops sent my footage to postal inspectors, and within a week, federal agents showed up at her house. They found boxes, literal boxes, of stolen mail. Birthday cards, checks, even medication packages. She'd been hoarding them for years, targeting people who complained about her HOA fines. Her house was like a museum of pettiness. Watching her being let out in handcuffs felt strange. Not joyful exactly, just complete. Like closing a chapter you didn't even realize had been eating at you. The neighbors clapped, some even hugged me. George said, "Took a little voltage to bring some light to this street." The story spread fast. By the next morning, HOA president gets shocked by karma was trending locally. Reporters showed up. Someone even left a note taped to my mailbox that said, "You did what we all wanted to do." Weeks later, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Linda was gone, permanently removed, and for the first time, people actually smiled during discussions. The new chair, Mrs. Carter, started with, "No more nonsense fines. No more tyranny." The neighborhood finally felt human again. Kids laughed outside without someone measuring the decibel level. And my mailbox? Still standing strong, fully functional, grounded, and slightly famous. A few months after Linda's arrest, I got a postcard with no return address. It was from a correctional facility in another state. Just one line in shaky handwriting. "You ruined my life, but I still think you cheated." I pinned it to my corkboard above my desk, right next to a photo of my shiny mailbox, and wrote under it in Sharpie, "Boundaries, conduct, respect." Sometimes I sit on my porch at dusk, coffee in hand, watching the street glow under the lamplight, and I think about how small acts of power can rot a person from the inside. Linda thought control meant strength, but all it did was isolate her. And me? I learned that justice doesn't always come from courts or cops. Sometimes it hums quietly at 12 volts, waiting for the right moment to remind people that consequences exist. So yeah, maybe it was petty. Maybe it was poetic. But it worked. Now tell me, if you were in my shoes, if your neighbor kept crossing the line and no one would stop them, would you have done the same? Or would you have let it go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe if you believe in a little spark of justice. And remember, boundaries only matter if you're willing to defend them.